Hey there guys, I'm going to do a quick rundown on AMD versus Nvidia. That's the GPU side of things, not the CPU side of things. I've got another video for that, just check out my channel. I'm going to run through a sort of entry level to high end, what you should look at buying, how to future-proof yourself, and really what you can get away with, because there's a lot of people that always ask, what GPU do I need, and they've got like the Nvidia 680 listed, and if you're looking at a budget PC, you don't need to spend a huge amount. You do need to spend the most probably on the graphics card in a gaming PC out of everything else, but you don't need to spend huge amounts on it. Okay, so starting from the beginning, AMD and Nvidia are based on two very different architectures. I'm not going to go too far into this because I could explain it for an hour and I probably wouldn't be finished. But what that means is the circuits are put together incredibly differently. This means they have very different specifications. In a lot of cases, AMD, for instance, have a much faster GPU than the Nvidia version that performs at the same speed as it does. And this is because of the different architectures. So you can't base your opinions of the card on raw specs alone. Now there's a site called anandtech.com, I'll leave it in the description. And what this site has is a bench part. And if you go onto the bench, it's got GPU 2012, and you can compare the performance of every single modern GPU at release. So you have to remember that driver updates will mean that all the GPUs will probably perform slightly better than that now, but this is the best way to compare not only graphics cards from the same manufacturer, but graphics cards from Nvidia versus AMD, because of the architecture differences. It's just down to copyright and stuff like that. They can't obviously use each other's technologies. Another thing I quickly want to run through is physics. Physics doesn't exist anymore. Don't listen to Nvidia fanboys that still quote it. I'm not an AMD fanboy, I'm actually running an Nvidia 560 in my current rig. But it was built like 7 years ago, and the idea was Nvidia would pay companies to use it so it would run better on their graphics cards, and this only really happened with the Batman games, Batman Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, but it doesn't really matter if you don't have an Nvidia card because the physics is just not done on the processor. And modern AMD cards can actually run the physics engine, they just don't have a physics processor on board. That's what the Nvidia cards have, so if you turn on physics, all the processing is done on the graphics processing unit. But modern AMD cards are actually powerful enough and fast enough to deal with that, so it's not really an issue. Another thing that's always quoted is Cuda cores. Again, this doesn't really mean anything. Nvidia just give their technology nice names. AMD has stream processors that basically do the same thing, and AMD has actually had this technology longer. So those two comparisons, a lot of people on each side quote those names, and just basically each has sort of their own versions of each thing. So don't base your purchase on that. Anyway, moving on, again, be careful if you're buying a pre-built PC. Now this is an expensive pre-built PC, especially from places like Dell or HP, or even like the more expensive ones like Alienware. What they tend to do is, a lot of people know what's a good processor, a lot of people know what's a good hard drive. They hear lots of space, well, they don't actually know what's a good hard drive, I'll move on to that. They hear it's got a big hard drive, so they go for it. They hear it's got lots of RAM, so they go for it. Very, very few people know what a good graphics card is, and really what they should be budgeting for each part of their PC for a gaming PC. A good graphics card is really the AMD 7700 series or higher, or the Nvidia 650 Ti or higher. And you see time and time again sort of PCs from something like HP that've got i7, 16 gigs of RAM, terabyte hard drive, advertised as gaming PCs, but they've only got an Nvidia 630, and this is not a good graphics card. It might play a couple of games on low, but it's not going to play modern games. You won't be able to really play anything like Battlefield 3 on it or something like that. It's just not going to happen. So you really want to either be building your own, or just be very wary of these big companies selling gaming PCs that aren't actually gaming PCs. They're just fitted out so they can sell them at a high price, at a premium. If you aren't competent at building your own PC, there's another website called www.cyberpowerpc.co.uk. If you're from America, just change the .co.uk extension to .com, and this is the best best custom building website out there on the net at the minute. You can customize every single bit of your computer. You can put whatever you want in there, and they'll do it and send it to you. Anyway, moving on to the graphics cards. In my other video, I mentioned the cheapest, sort of the different levels of processors you can go for. Just to give you a vague idea of how much you should be spending on your graphics card, it's probably going to be at least 150% of what you're spending on your processor. So for instance, if you're going to buy an AMD FX 6100, let me just check how much that is. I think that's £90 currently. Sorry, I'm working in British pounds. If you're from America, I'm from England. The 6100, okay, £90. So you're looking to spend around £140, £130 to £140 on the graphics card, if that's your processor. And this tends to be the best way to manage your budget. I find anyway. Anyway, the lowest graphics card you want to go to is probably the AMD 7750. This is a good graphics card because it performs slightly lower than the 7770 that a lot of people will recommend as a minimum graphics card, but it can run on a 400 watt power supply. So if you don't have the 500 watt power supply or the 450 watt power supply, you can run it off the 400 watt power supply. If you do, however, have a 500 watt power supply or higher, I recommend starting with the 7770 or the Nvidia 650 Ti. They perform almost identically, so it's kind of down to your preference. If you move up the budget a bit, do not go for AMD 7850 or 7950. They're not worth it. You may as well spend a little bit extra and go for the 7870 in this case. This really bang for buck outcompetes both the 650 and the 650 Ti. Moving up again, you want to look at the Nvidia 670 if your budget's a bit higher, and then to the top end you want to look at the AMD 7970 GHz edition. If you want to go dual GPU, do it properly and go for the AMD Aries 2 7990. That's probably the best dual GPU solution on the market. And if I just quickly go through now my recommendations. My recommendations is always to buy the mid-level card, sell it and upgrade early to the next level. What I mean by this is I'm still on the Nvidia 560 because I didn't have enough money to do it this series, unfortunately. But I've tended to buy sort of the mid-end card. So the mid-end card that I'm probably going to go up to when the next series comes out is the 8870. So for this it would be the 7870. This can max out all current games, no problem, bar maybe Crisis Free. Then I'll sell that on eBay as the other ones are coming out, so it hasn't lost too much value. And then you only have to spend you get about 60 to 70% of what you're going to spend on the next graphics card anyway back. The reason I do this is because old gen tech can still max out games. My Nvidia 560 maxes out most games still that are coming to the market. The reason for this is because the consoles are 7 years old. The consoles can only do so much graphics. The new series of consoles are coming out at the end of this year. It's another reason I'm holding off upgrading the graphics card, because I want to upgrade to the next series that come out when the consoles come out. But basically, graphics cards companies know that their old gen tech can still max out games. So to counter this, AMD didn't really do anything. They brought out the 7000 series. It's just a lot more powerful, and it can tessellate a lot better than the 6000 series. Nvidia, however, added TXAA. They tend to add a new sort of technology to make the cards be more appealing. TXAA is great, except it's only really taken advantage by Assassin's Creed 3 at the minute, and it uses quite a lot of processing power, so you're probably not going to want to turn it on unless you have at least the Nvidia 670. Anything less than that and you're just not going to be running games as well, if we're honest. The next thing I want to go to is just to say buy AMD now if you can, because it's just the smartest thing to buy. The reason for this is the new consoles. Both the new consoles have been confirmed to contain the AMD 7790 GPU. You should probably go for the 7870 if you can, because obviously the operating system on the console is going to be slightly different, so optimizing it to run on the 7970 doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the full performance on PC that you do on the consoles. So if you upgrade to 7870, just to be safe, and PC games are always better looking than the console games, even though the new consoles are going to be like pretty good graphically. And for that reason, all new games pretty much are going to be tailored to run on the AMD architecture. Because the architectures are so different, it's impossible to make a game that runs exactly the same on Nvidia and AMD. And this is really apparent if you go onto AnandTech and just look at a benchmark between sort of two very similar AMD and Nvidia cards. So something like the 7770 and the 650 Ti are very similar. If you look at the performance difference between them, you see AMD winning in some, Nvidia's winning in some. Battlefield 3 is probably the best example. That was written very heavily to work on Nvidia best. So you see massive frame rates being massively better on the Nvidia cards. That said, if you're a Battlefield fan, I can confirm that Battlefield 4 has been written to work best on the AMD series cards and will be in the next AMD Never Settle bundle. The Never Settle bundles are basically when AMD just throws in a free game with their graphics cards or certain series of graphics cards. Chances are this bundle is going to be either during the launch of the 8000 series to sort of increase sales of the 8000 series, because some people like me know that the 8000 series will drop in price as soon as the Nvidia 700 series is released in January or February next year. So we'll hold off for that. So to counter that out, they're going to put the Battlefield 4 in the Never Settle bundle. The other possibility is they're going to put it in a Never Settle bundle just before the 8000 series is released to try and ship out the last of the high-end 7000 series. So the 7870, 7850, 7970, 7950 will probably be discontinued when the 8000 series is released, and so they'll want to ship out the last of them before they release the 8000 series and they become obsolete. So I'd wait for them to come out before you upgrade your graphics card, because you'll get a free game if you're particularly interested in Battlefield 3. If not, just go for it and upgrade. I think I had something else to say. No, perhaps I didn't. So yeah, basically it does come down to personal preference. Personally, I would recommend AMD at the moment because of the consoles. The AMD 8000 series is supposed to come out in the fourth quarter of this year, and the Nvidia 700 series is supposed to come out in the first quarter of next year, although the Nvidia 700 series hasn't been. That's more rumours. The AMD series will definitely be coming out in the last quarter of this year. Nvidia is quarter 1, quarter 2, kind of through rumours. It's probably going to be around then. It doesn't make sense for them to wait too long after the AMD 8000 release. So I suspect we'll see them around then. Please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment on anything else you'd like me to do a video on. Like I said, I've got a video on which processor you should choose. I recommend watching that if you're in the market for a gaming PC, because it just goes through what you really can get away with, and you'd be surprised how cheaply you can get away with. And yeah, thanks for watching.